You have a number in your pocket right now. You don't know what it means. Neither does anyone else. And somehow, that's the entire economy. We're about to dissect the massive invisible illusion that runs our daily lives. And trust me, the reality is way weirder than you think. If you want to make sense of the bizarre systems pulling the strings on your wallet, subscribe now so you never miss a video like this. Okay, let's back up. Picture this. You're a farmer. Year is like 3000 BC. You've got 12 cows. Great, life is good. But you're hungry for wheat and you don't have any. So you walk over to your neighbor who has wheat and you go, hey, cow for wheat. And he goes, deal. Boom. Economics. That's barter. The OG economic system. No money, no banks, no interest rates. Just two humans with stuff, trading stuff, because they both want the other person's stuff more than they want their own. Simple. Beautiful. Completely unscalable. Here's the problem with barter though, and this is the problem that changed everything. What if your neighbor doesn't want a cow? What if he already has 12 cows? What if he wants a boat, but you don't have a boat? Now you're just a person with a cow who's still hungry. The system breaks the moment you can't find a perfect match. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants, which is a fancy way of saying, barter only works when two people happen to want exactly what the other has at exactly the same time. Spoiler, that doesn't happen a lot. So humanity panicked and invented money. But here's what most people get wrong about money. Money isn't valuable because it's rare. It's not valuable because it's shiny. It's not even valuable because a government said so. Well, okay, partially. But that's not the deepest reason. Money is valuable because everyone agrees it's valuable. That's it. The entire global financial system runs on collective agreement. You accept a $20 bill because you trust that someone else will also accept a $20 bill. That's it. That's the magic trick. It's just a shared story. And that shared story, economists call it fiat currency, by the way. That idea is so powerful that humanity went from trading cows to trading digital numbers that represent theoretical ownership of fractions of corporations in less than 5,000 years. Which, on the scale of human history, is basically a Tuesday afternoon. So now we've got money. Everyone agrees it works. Great, but now a new question shows up. How much stuff should cost? And who decides? This is where we get into the actual gears of economics. And those gears are supply and demand. These two words get thrown around so much they've basically lost their meaning. So let's bring them back to life. Imagine there's a coffee shop in your neighborhood. One coffee shop. Everyone in the neighborhood wants coffee. The shop can only make 200 cups a day. 200 people show up. The shop owner goes, cool, I'll charge $5. Everyone pays it. Why? Because there's no other option. Only one shop, and the demand is high. Everyone wants coffee. Low supply plus high demand equals high price. That's the whole law. Now a second coffee shop opens across the street, and a third. Suddenly there are 6 coffee shops all fighting for the same 200 caffeine-addicted customers. Now the shops are competing. They start lowering prices. One goes to $4, another goes to $3.50. Suddenly you've got a latte for $2, and the shop owner is having an existential crisis. High supply, same demand, prices fall. This is the market. It's not a building. It's not a stock ticker. A market is just the invisible negotiation happening between buyers and sellers every second of every day. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is the thing that trips people up. Supply and demand don't just decide coffee prices. They decide the price of everything. Your salary? Supply and demand. If software engineers are rare and every tech company needs them, their salary goes up. If suddenly 10 million people learn to code, salaries drop. You are a product in the labor market. I know that sounds cold. It's also just true. Okay, but hold on. If markets are so good at setting prices, if supply and demand naturally find the right number for everything, then why does anything go wrong? Why does the economy ever crash? Why does inflation exist? Why did your parents' first house cost $40,000, and now a studio apartment is $500,000? That's not a rhetorical question. That's where we're going next. Because the answer involves governments, central banks, like printing machines, and a decision made in the 1970s that basically rewired the entire world. And yeah, it involves the money printer meme. But that meme is actually a really good economics lesson in disguise. Alright, so inflation. Everyone's felt it. You go to the grocery store and a box of cereal that used to be $3 is now $5.50. Nothing changed about the cereal. The wheat is the same. The cardboard is the same. The cartoon mascot is still creepily happy. But the price went up. Why? Here's the simple version. Inflation is what happens when there's more money chasing the same amount of stuff. If the amount of stuff stays constant, but the amount of money floating around doubles, every dollar is worth half as much as it used to be. Not because someone made a rule, just because the math works out that way. Think about it this way. Imagine your entire town has a total of $100 in it. There are exactly 100 apples for sale. Each apple costs $1. Makes sense. Now a helicopter flies over and drops another $100 on the town. Now there are $200 and still only 100 apples. The apples don't care that there's more money. They're apples. But sellers notice there's more money around, so now each apple costs $2. Same apples. Same hunger. Double the price. That helicopter is called quantitative easing. And yes, the money printer goes brrr. But here's the thing about that meme. It's not wrong. When governments and central banks inject money into the economy, they are literally creating new money. Not from gold. Not from labor. From a decision. And every new dollar slightly dilutes the value of every existing dollar. It's like if you had a glass of orange juice and I poured water in it. Still orange juice. Just weaker. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part nobody's bad. Mild inflation, like 2 to 3% a year, is actually what economists want. It means the economy is growing. Prices rising slightly encourages people to spend now instead of waiting. If prices are falling, which sounds great, it's actually a nightmare called deflation. Why would you buy a TV today if it's going to be cheaper next month? You wait. Everyone waits. Nobody spends. The economy freezes. Japan spent 20 years in a deflation trap, and it basically stunted their entire economic growth for a generation. So central banks, in the US, that's the Federal Reserve, the Fed, they walk this constant tightrope. Too much inflation? Bad. Too little? Also bad. Their main tool for controlling it? Interest rates. Here's how that works. The Fed sets a baseline interest rate. When that rate goes up, borrowing money becomes more expensive. Mortgages cost more. Business loans cost more. So people and businesses borrow less, spend less, and the economy cools down. Less spending means less money chasing stuff, which slows inflation. When the rate goes down, borrowing is cheap, people take out loans, businesses invest, the economy heats up. The Fed is basically a DJ, and the interest rate is the volume knob on the economy. Too loud, inflation. Too quiet, recession. And this is the moment I want you to actually stop for a second. Because here's the wild part. The Federal Reserve controls the most powerful economy on the planet. They influence mortgage rates, business investment, employment, the value of the dollar globally, and they do it by adjusting a single number, one number. And that number isn't set by an election or a vote or a democratic process. It's set by a committee of 12 people in a room. Their decisions get announced in a press release. And within milliseconds, algorithms on Wall Street process that press release and execute billions of dollars in trades before a human even finishes reading the first sentence. That's actually insane. Think about it. A few sentences in a document move billions of dollars before any human reads them. The market isn't just fast, it's faster than human thought. We built something that operates at a speed we can't even perceive. Okay, so we've got money, we've got supply and demand, we've got inflation, interest rates, and the Fed adjusting the volume knob. Now let's talk about what happens when all of this gets organized at the level of individual people and businesses. That's microeconomics, versus what happens at the level of entire countries. That's macroeconomics. Microeconomics is you deciding whether to buy the name brand cereal or the store brand. It's a business deciding how many workers to hire. It's a landlord deciding how much to charge for rent. Micro is all about individual choices, individual incentives, individual trade-offs. Macroeconomics is the bird's eye view. It's GDP, gross domestic product, which is the total value of everything a country produces in a year. It's unemployment rates, it's trade deficits. It's why one country is rich and another is poor, even when they're sitting on similar resources. And the crazy thing, the thing that makes economists fight at conferences, is that micro and macro don't always agree. Individual rational decisions, millions of them, can add up to irrational collective outcomes. Every person pulling their money out of the bank because they're scared of a crash. Totally rational, individually. But if everyone does it at once, you cause the crash you were scared of, the fear becomes the event. Economists call this a bank run. And it's one of the clearest examples of something called emergent behavior, where the whole is not just different from the sum of its parts, it's sometimes the opposite of it. Wait, hold on. That pattern, where individual actions create collective outcomes that no individual intended, that's not just economics. That's physics. That's thermodynamics. That's how gases work. Billions of individual molecules moving randomly in ways that add up to predictable, measurable pressure and temperature. The economy and a gas in a container are mathematically the same problem. That's not a metaphor. Economists literally borrowed equations from 19th century physics to build their models. So what are we actually dealing with here? Is economics a social science or a natural one? Here's the answer to that question, by the way. Both, and neither. Economics is the science of human behavior under conditions of scarcity. And that makes it the weirdest science on the planet. Because the thing being studied, humans, knows it's being studied and changes its behavior accordingly. You can't observe an electron and have the electron decide to mess with you because it read your paper. Humans do that constantly. But let's talk about the infrastructure, the actual plumbing that the modern economy runs through. Banks. A bank is not a vault. This is the thing that breaks people's brains when they first hear it. You think of a bank as a safe place where your money sits. It does not sit. The second you deposit money, the bank loans most of it out to someone else. If you put in $1,000, the bank keeps maybe 100 of it on hand and loans out 900. The person who borrowed that 900 deposits it in another bank, which loans out 810, and so on. This is called fractional reserve banking, and it means the total amount of money that exists in the financial system is way larger than the actual physical dollars that were ever printed. The entire banking system is, functionally, a coordinated act of trust-based multiplication. Which sounds insane until you realize it's why civilization can grow. Without that multiplication, there's no investment, no business loans, no mortgages, no startups, no iPhones. The risk creates the growth. Now, the stock market. People act like the stock market is this mysterious casino for rich people. It's actually pretty logical once you strip it down. A company needs money to grow. Instead of borrowing from a bank, it sells little slices of ownership. Those are stocks. You buy a slice. If the company gets more valuable, your slice gets more valuable. If it crashes, so does your slice. The stock market is just a giant, real-time auction for pieces of companies. But here's the thing that makes it genuinely strange. The price of a stock isn't really about how much the company is worth right now. It's about how much people think it will be worth in the future. Which means you're not buying a piece of a company, you're buying a piece of a collective prediction about that company's future. And collective predictions are influenced by confidence, panic, rumors, tweets from billionaires, and whether the CEO said something weird on an earnings call. In 2021, a bunch of people on Reddit decided to buy GameStop stock as a joke and accidentally almost broke a hedge fund. That's not a metaphor. That actually happened. The meme became the market. Which brings us, inevitably, to cryptocurrency. Bitcoin was invented in 2008 by a person, or group, still unknown, under the name Satoshi Nakamoto. The timing is not a coincidence. 2008 was the year the global financial system almost completely collapsed because banks had been making insane bets on mortgages they knew were bad, wrapped them in complicated financial products nobody fully understood, and sold them to each other until the whole thing blew up and millions of people lost their homes. The global economy shrank. Unemployment spiked. It was bad. Bitcoin was designed as a response to exactly that. No banks. No central authority. No single point of failure. Instead, a blockchain. A public ledger, copied across thousands of computers simultaneously, where every transaction is recorded and can't be changed without redoing all the work that came before it. It's not controlled by a government. It's controlled by math. Is it money? Is it gold? Is it a speculative asset? The answer, honestly, is that nobody fully agrees. And that disagreement is itself economically interesting, because the price of Bitcoin is almost entirely made of conviction and narrative, which, circle back, is also true of the dollar. The dollar is worth something because we all agree it is. Bitcoin is worth something because enough people agree it is. The mechanism is different. The underlying principle is the same shared story we started with. And this is where we zoom back out. We started with a farmer and a cow. We went through barter, money, markets, inflation, central banks, fractional reserve banking, the stock market, and cryptocurrency. And here's what all of it has in common. Every single system humans have built to manage economic exchange is just a more sophisticated answer to the same original question. How do we coordinate with strangers? How do we trust someone we've never met enough to give them something valuable in exchange for a promise? Money is trust made portable. Banks are trust made scalable. The stock market is trust made liquid. Crypto is trust made decentralized. We built the entire global economy out of collective belief, and that belief moves faster than any human can track, operates at scales no human can fully comprehend, and produces outcomes no human fully predicted. Which leaves us with the question economists still genuinely haven't answered. If markets are just the emergent behavior of millions of individual humans making rational decisions, and we know that humans are deeply, provably irrational, that we panic, that we follow trends, that we make the same mistakes over and over and over, then can a system built on irrational agents ever be truly stable? Or is every period of economic calm just the quiet before a crash we didn't see coming? We still don't know. No one does. The model is still being built. Since the entire global economy is just a giant psychological experiment built on collective trust, Is a massive system-wide crash actually inevitable, or can we keep hallucinating this wealth forever? Let me know your answer in the comments, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to keep exploring these weird rabbit holes with us.